Kia ora and welcome to Worship at St Mary by the Sea. Today our theme is No Standing, and we look at the story of Zacchaeus. If you have a celebration or a milestone you'd like to share with us, please email office@stmary.co.nz and we'd love to be able to include it. Jesus, as you walked along the lake, the shore of people's lives you called. May we respond.
Jesus, you called others to bring people to your message.
May we likewise bring others to your message. Jesus, you call us to worship together. May we with one heart and one voice worship you.
Creator, we disfigure your world. Lord, have mercy.
Lord, have mercy.
Redeemer, we reject your redemption and crucify you daily. Christ, have mercy.
Christ, have mercy.
Giver of life, we too often choose death. Lord, have mercy.
Lord, have mercy. God forgives you. Be at peace. Amen.
A reading from Habakkuk, chapter 1, verses 1 to 4, and chapter 2, verses 1 to 4. I am Habakkuk the prophet, and this is the message that the Lord gave me. Our Lord, how long must I beg for your help before you listen? How long before you save us from all this violence? Why do you make me watch such terrible injustice? Why do you allow violence, lawlessness, crime and cruelty to spread everywhere? Laws cannot be enforced. Justice is always the loser. Criminals crowd out honest people and twist the laws around. While standing guard on the watchtower, I waited for the Lord's answer before explaining the reason for my complaint. Then the Lord told me, I will give you my message in the form of a vision. Write it clearly enough to be read at a glance. At the time I have decided, my words will come true. You can trust what I say about the future. It may take a long time, but keep on waiting. It will happen. I, the Lord, refuse to accept anyone who is proud. Only those who live by faith are acceptable to me.
Luke chapter 19, verses 1 to 10. Jesus was going through Jericho, where a man named Zacchaeus lived. He was in charge of collecting taxes and was very rich. Jesus was heading his way, and Zacchaeus wanted to see what he was like. But Zacchaeus was a short man and could not see over the crowd, so he ran ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree. When Jesus got there, he looked up and said, Zacchaeus, hurry down, I want to stay with you today. Zacchaeus hurried down and gladly welcomed Jesus. Everyone who saw this started grumbling, This man Zacchaeus is a sinner, and Jesus is going home to eat with him. Later that day, Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, I will give half of my property to the poor, and I will now pay back 4 times as much to everyone I have ever cheated. Jesus said to Zacchaeus, Today you and your family have been saved, because you are a true son of Abraham.
In our reading from Habakkuk, today we have the prophet's cry of how long. It is a cry that we constantly hear in history, whether it's through Habakkuk or the Psalms or even John of Revelation. And there is this cry that goes out, how long until we see justice? It is the cry of God's people crying out for God to intervene and for God to deal justly with them. Often it's along the lines of asking for one's foes to be brought to justice. Habakkuk is reasonably unique in this request of asking God to intervene. It's a request that we tend to only hear through the Psalms and almost not at all through the prophets. The Psalms, of course, are our ancient hymns or the songbook, the hymns being our words to God, and the prophets being God's words to us. Our songwriters often call out for help. They often say, How long till you intervene, God? Of course, the irony in this, of us asking God for justice through the hymns and the Psalms, is that God asks these exact same questions of us through the prophets. And often God's lines to us go along the line of this. How long must I, the sovereign Lord, wait for justice? We have a tendency to blame things on God. We think, if only God would intervene, that a situation would be better, that everything would be okay. We distance ourselves from personal responsibility. Sometimes we get into situations where we can't see a way out, and we cry out to God and we blame God for what is happening. The Psalms and our songwriters border on this at times, and when we do this, we can distance ourselves from the need to deal justly with our neighbour. The call from God to deal justly with our neighbour became much more personal and much more direct and far less abstract in Jesus. We were in Jesus showing concrete examples of what justice looks like. And the story of Zacchaeus this morning gives us an example for our lives of what justice, salvation, and right living look like. Zacchaeus is a story that has wide appeal to children, because as a short child it's easy to identify with someone who can't see over the top of others. It's easy to identify with being at the bottom of the pile and not being able to be seen. Many of us who are older can also identify with the story. Maybe we would like to get closer to Jesus, but we can't because we find it embarrassing, or maybe it's just too costly. The story of Jesus calling Zacchaeus deals with both of these. We learn something of the cost of salvation in following Jesus, and we learn something of the social stigma and embarrassment of following Jesus. Making that public commitment to Jesus is something that is quite hard at times. When we packed up to go to St. John's College so I could train to be a priest, I was constantly surprised where we got our support from and who we lost the support of. I was surprised by the friends I lost. I didn't realise that decision was quite as radical as some saw it to be. I didn't see it as being fringe, as some saw it to be. It just felt right. And I think Zacchaeus in today's story must have considered the cost quite a bit. You get this impression that he sat on the fringes, so much so that he was up a tree. I mean, women could bust on through the crowd to touch the hem of Jesus' robe and be healed, but Zacchaeus couldn't. I wonder if there was a bit of a joke in the way that the story is told. I wonder if Luke knew some of the details that have been lost to us. Maybe Zacchaeus was actually tall, and calling him short was a way of saying that he had lost his standing in society. Anyway, the story reads like something of a comedy. Here you have someone who can't see, so he runs ahead and climbs up a tree. The story before this one was a story of a blind man who couldn't see. And here we have another person who can't see. He has all this standing in society, but he can't see. So he runs ahead, he climbs up a tree to see Jesus. Was this so he could scrutinise Jesus at a distance? Or was it because of a genuine height problem? Or was he wanting to genuinely draw close? Regardless, Jesus in graciousness says, Zacchaeus, I'll come to your house. And when Jesus says this, he is saying that salvation is coming to Zacchaeus' house. His wait is now over. God is with him. There comes a point, like with Zacchaeus, when God offers us salvation too. And at this point we have a choice of what to do. Do we say yes, or do we say no? For some of us, like Zacchaeus, we assume that this is quite a considered decision, as he had much, and he had much to lose. In these hard decisions, we are given comfort through the story of Zacchaeus, that even though we might have much to lose, that encounter with God transforms us in such a way that we can deal with that change. We're not told what question Zacchaeus had that drove him up the tree. He must have recognised something, though. There must have been some faith at work in his life. I mean, can you imagine someone in a three-piece suit doing this? Because that's essentially what Zacchaeus did. He was the chief tax collector. He would have been dressed up. It must have been fairly humiliating for him, because here he was, a person of significance and standing in society, climbing up a tree to see. But something happened in his life, and he recognised that there was something in Jesus. And the story goes on, and he in turn discovers new life. And it all came from that first hesitant scramble up the tree. This encounter with Jesus is one of the final frames around Luke's Gospel. It's one of the stories that sums up the life and call of Jesus. And as such, we should see it as one of those big picture frames that we see at our regional park, like Long Bay down the road. A big frame through which to view scenery. And in this case, it's a big frame in which to view the gospel journey. Here we see Jesus call yet another sinner. We see that that sinner recognises and responds, and we see a life-transforming salvation happen. And that salvation, though, is not just for Zacchaeus, but also for the community at large. Because as Zacchaeus changes his ways, his community is set free from him. We're told he gives away half of his possessions to the poor, and he offers to repay back anything he has inappropriately taken from people. You can imagine that this had a major impact on his financial well-being. But his encounter with Jesus made all of this possible. He had a sickness, something missing in life that Jesus could fill. And he gives back to his community. He gives back the grace that was extended to him from Jesus. And as we too show grace to our community, God's kingdom grows. We should note too that Zacchaeus didn't join as one of Jesus' disciples on the road. Rather, the call on his life was to be a disciple amongst his own community, to be part of the renewed and restored Israel right where he was. So salvation for Zacchaeus comes through, firstly, allowing his curiosity to seek and approach Jesus. And secondly, he accepted Jesus' invitation to come into his home. And we note that God graciously makes the first move. Thirdly, after accepting Jesus as his master, he reorders his life. So we need to want to see Jesus at work. Through that, Jesus is able to say, "Can I come in and stay with you?" We're then able to listen and, like Zacchaeus, choose to reorder our lives into a way pleasing to God. To come to God, we must put aside ourselves and take on our new self. This story testifies that to see Jesus, we must put aside our reserve, our status, and our standing. And when we do that, we don't even need to ask God for access, because God graciously says, "Zacchaeus, I'll come into your house." What is it that you need to put aside today to come closer to Jesus? Let us pray. Gracious God, you surprise us with love that seeks and embraces. Your graceful welcome is so affirming that it's life-changing. Help us to embrace your welcoming spirit with gratitude and joy, so that we too may live with such love. Amen. we pray in silence for those things and those people on our mind. Now, as Jesus taught us, we pray together, saying,
Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trial, and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen.
Glory to a great
road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warmly upon your face and the rains fall softly upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand. And the blessing of God, our Creator, Redeemer and Giver of life, be with you always. Amen.
Amen.